What's up, beautiful people? This is Fearfully Fit Podcast, and my goal for you is to develop a healthy mind, body, and spirit. I'm going to be sharing with you an in-depth look into how I lost over 100 pounds and had a total life transformation. I want you to be fit in all aspects of your life because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. What's up, beautiful people, and welcome to Fearfully Fit Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today we have Tasha Hill with us. How you doing, Tasha?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for joining me. So I start off the episodes with doing a would you rather question just to get us comfortable and, start talking with the conversation. Okay, would you rather always be hot or always be cold? And if you're always cold, it's the type of cold that like your lips are chattering, your teeth are chattering type of cold that you can't do anything to warm yourself up. And if you're always hot, it's the type of hot where you can see the sweat stains in your clothes and there's nothing that you can do to cool yourself down. That's hard because when I'm cold, I can't think. Like when I'm cold where my teeth are chattering type of cold, it's hard for me to function. But when I'm hot and I'm sweating type of hot, I always feel stinky and I can't stand a stink butt. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like the opposite. I can't stand to be hot. Like I get overwhelmed, I get stressed out. I feel crazy when I'm hot. When I'm cold, I can always warm up, but in this case, I can't.
You can't warm up.
I think I would rather be cold because if I'm hot and sweaty all the time, ew.
Right, and I would never feel cute. I would always think I'm stinking. So I would, even though in general, I would rather be too warm than too cold. In this situation, I would pick always cold just because I don't want to be feeling stink.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. That was good. All right. So we're going to get into it. The episode for today, the topic is mental health. And like I previously stated in another episode, the first episode, I explained that Fearfully Fit is more than just about weight loss and about fitness. It's also about anything that encompasses living a healthier lifestyle, which is mentally, it's emotionally, financially, anything that deals with your overall health. So Tasha has a very powerful testimony that deals with her struggle with depression, and I thought that it was important to have her come on here and speak about her experience. And I know that it can help somebody else, either someone who's listening to this that's dealing with depression, or someone that could be dealing with depression and maybe how to approach them about it. So I thought that this was a really good conversation to have. So what I looked up was the definition of depression is that it is a mental illness that has a significant effect on a person's ability to function normally and is marked by persistent feelings of sadness, emptiness, worthlessness, and hopelessness. So would you say that accurately describes what you felt before?
I would say it's pretty accurate. I would say that there's more stuff that comes along with those things, but as like the core of those feelings that you get when you do get into that mode or have those depressive episodes, it would be pretty much on point.
Okay. So what age were you when you started to feel depressed? Like what age were you, and then also what was happening in your life when you started to have those type of feelings?
I would like to say that it started from about 5 to 6 years old, very young on.
I would say, yeah, that's very young.
When I started dealing with the struggle of rejection and abandonment, growing up not having my dad in my life, which caused all kind of self-esteem issues. It caused me not to know my identity, who I was. And then it seems like things just triggered from there. I didn't know that it was depression, though. I just thought I was just a sad child, sad person going through issues. I didn't understand it to be depression until I turned 30 and was clinically diagnosed with it.
From the age of 5 all the way till 30, you didn't deal with your depression?
Didn't.
That's a long time to be sad. That is a long time to deal with sad. Well, and would you say it was like sad moments, or was it for you kind of like a continuous type of I'm always sad type of thing?
It was definitely more so sad moments, but somewhere deep within it was always this sadness. Like, people would actually sometimes say, why you look sad all the time? Wow. And I wasn't consciously being done. It just, I guess, whatever I was feeling on the inside was literally showing on my face. Without me even realizing that.
Oh, wow. That is a long time to deal with that. And did you wait so long? What was your reasoning for waiting so long to go seek help about it?
It wasn't even my choice. It just got to the point where I couldn't deal anymore. And someone saw that, and they actually...
What do you mean by can't deal anymore? Do you mean like you were just laying there and you were just like, I just can't live like this anymore? Or did a particular event happen and you was just like, this is when it's gone too far?
Event.
Okay.
I turned 30. And at that point, I felt like nothing in my life was going the way I planned it out. I felt like I didn't get the dream job I wanted. I was in a really bad job at the time, working 2 hours away from where I lived, traveling every day, getting home really late, and having to get up like 3 a.m. to go right back. And where I was thinking that I was supposed to be like a teacher, it wasn't like that. I was really a babysitter. And I just got very overwhelmed, very stressed out. And being 30 was like, okay, this is a new era. I should be living my best life now. I just became hopeless.
During those moments that you felt hopeless, were you doing, when you look back, do you feel like you were doing everything you could to not be in that circumstance? Or was it the hopelessness came because I'm trying everything I possibly can and it's still not working out?
I would say because I thought then finally I was beginning to try everything I could. Like I said, I felt like I finally got a foot in the door. I'm finally on my way to my dream job. And I was still so far from it. And then everything that was happening in my past started coming up.
Right. I think a lot of times people get into moments of depression and it's not so much that it's the opposite, that they're not doing all they can, but they're using, like they allow that spirit to come on them when really they could have just pushed through like, well, they were only doing A, B. They weren't doing C, D, E, F, you know what I mean, to get to where you needed to go. So I think it's important. I mean, obviously, I want to make this very clear. I'm not no type of certified anything. I'm not no therapist. I'm not anything. I have Tasha on this episode so she can give her testimony and kind of give clarity on some things and, maybe reach out to somebody else. But from my perspective, it seems like a lot of time, for instance, I'm going to say with my weight, right? I was very much depressed because of my weight, but that's something that I could change. So I was sad for a very, very long time because of my weight, but then I also had the ability the entire time to change it. You know what I mean? So I think it's also important when you feel like you're going through depression to say, am I doing all I can? Which I know that's it's easier said than done, because in the moment, depression makes you feel like just give up. You know what I'm saying? So it's always, which I think that's why a therapist will come in. I think it's good to get therapy. Did you start therapy at 32?
I started an outpatient program. So I was hospitalized for the first time.
You were hospitalized?
I was hospitalized for the first time. And it was just overnight. But
why were you hospitalized? Because
I was having suicidal ideation, which is basically constant thoughts of suicide. And I was threatening to actually carry them out.
Oh, wow. So you literally had moments where it's like, I'd rather be dead than be alive. Yeah. Because my life it wasn't worth living?
It was that the pain was so intense that it's like, it's not even worth it. Like, really in those moments, you can't even think straight. It's just like so dark that it's like, I don't see no light in this, so what's the sense? Like, I don't see anything ever changing, so... And you kind of just end up giving up without even... It's not that you want to, you just want a way out of the pain and you can't see that way out.
It's the same feeling. It's just I didn't allow it to necessarily fester, I guess you could say. I had went through a bad breakup and I didn't want to die, but I just didn't want to feel, I wanted to stay asleep. Does that make any sense? I did not want to die, but I just definitely wanted to stay asleep, because when I was asleep, I couldn't feel anything. So I guess then depression would be that feeling that continues, like when you stay in that type of, and I can't even imagine, like, if I stayed there, like having that, that was just a taste of what people who really suffer from depression go through. That's heavy.
Right. And then that's the difference between understanding that there's people that have depressive moments where they eventually just snap right out of it, versus people that are diagnosed clinically depressed, because then they might have longer terms of those type of moments, those type of feelings.
So I know that depression is a twofold, that it's something in the mind naturally, and then it's also things happening in the spiritual realm. Would you say, just from your personal opinion, because I understand that you're not necessarily an expert, but just from your personal experience, was it more of a spiritual warfare, or was it naturally, I need help, I need meds, because there's an imbalance for the people who can't snap out of it?
From my experience, I think it balances. But I think we don't like to deal with the reality of the I need help. I might need a medication to help. And that's my reasoning even for being in it for so long, is because when they tried the medications for a while, it was working, and then I was allergic. I broke out with allergic reactions, and every time they tried more, I had even worse reactions. So I had to just fall into just going through the therapy portion versus the therapy and the meds. So sometimes a lot of people can come out of it even sooner because they have both things to help that chemical imbalance that they're going through. But for me, I didn't have that option.
So you were just relying, like,
so
God deliver me.
And therapy.
So what are some of the ways that depression manifested itself in your adulthood? Like, as a kid, obviously, you're not, you don't have as many components to your life. So what has been the difference between how it affected you as a kid and then how it affected you as an adult?
As a kid, like I said, it was, to me at that time, it just seemed like I was just sad. And it made it hard sometimes to have friends. But now as an adult, it causes a whole lot of trust issues. It causes me to always feel like somebody has a motive behind them, which is really just my own insecurities. It caused me to shut down at the moment from the work world. It caused me to have a lot of social anxiety, although I am around people in church and things like that. But when it comes to other things that I should be doing as an adult, whether it's going out or whether it's just living life, sometimes I shy away from those things because of those moments. And the fear of having an anxiety attack, the fear of being around too many people, those type of things come up, and it just kind of shuts you down from what you should be doing as an adult, living daily.
Are you on medication right now? Because you did say that you were allergic to the ones that they previously gave you. So what about now?
I am on an anxiety medication only, which kind of only helps for anxiety versus the depression.
When you're off it, can you noticeably tell a difference?
I can. I have a hard time. I'm like constantly anxious when I'm not taking it. And then
anxious in the way, are you saying that, are you overthinking situations? Are you anxious meaning you question every situation? Is that the type of anxious you're talking about?
Anxious in the sense of I have panic attacks. So just as simple as being on a bus and it becomes overcrowded, I can start crying, breaking out in sweats.
Oh wow. I feel like when it doesn't make sense, right? Like, for instance, when I was talking about my weight and how the weight was making me sad and having those depressive moments, and I knew that I just needed to lose the weight to be happier. But say after I lost the weight and then I was still depressed and not understanding why, or for your instance, you getting on a crowded bus and to someone else it's just like, you'll get off it, it's okay, relax. I feel like those are the moments when it no longer makes sense. That's when you know, like, I need to get help. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
That does make sense, because then you start to understand that something else is going on here. It's a bigger picture. If this little thing is bothering me this much and I can't seem to get a grip or handle it, then I might need to do something or find coping skills or things to help me to be able to help in those situations.
Right. Who was the person, I just want to go back a little bit. Who was the person when you said it wasn't by choice when you got help at 30? Who made you go get help?
Well, Evangelist Michelle Williams, the lady who once went to our church, she discovered a book that I had started writing things in because I could no longer handle them in my own mind. And she took me to our bishop and they decided together that...
Oh God, I would have been mortified that someone like read my personal thoughts, but I mean, it saved your life. Do you look at it that way, that moment ended up saving your life?
I didn't at first, but eventually.
So outside of you, do you still receive therapy?
I do.
So you still receive therapy. Obviously, Tasha and I go to church together, so I know that, you know, as far as your spiritual life, that's something that you're still connected to. But outside of those things, what do you do to help? We briefly talked about this before when I asked you, was it appropriate to say that someone is healed from depression, or is it just, what is the correct term when you're not dealing with depression at the moment? Do you still claim to have depression if someone, you know, what do you get what I'm trying to say?
I guess it goes back to whether I'm just having a depressive moment or whether it was clinically diagnosed.
So how long has it been since your last suicide attempt?
2 years.
Then
a year.
1 year. Have you had those long feelings of depression since your last suicide attempt?
I have.
You have? And then, so what do you do to not allow it to reach that point where it's like, I want to take my life, outside of therapy and church? What else do you do?
Well, in this last year, which has helped me to fight, I started using coping skills that my therapist gave me. So there's days when I literally have to text a hotline and speak with counselors. They'll text back and forth for hours if need be until I feel safe, until I pass the moment. I had to call people sometimes to say, I'm having a moment, I need to talk, I need to get out this house. Right? It took drastic movements like that sometimes just to make it through those moments. Then there's other days where I just fall into it and I don't get up and fight. I may have fight the suicidal thoughts, but sometimes they're still there. Like, I really rather not, like you said earlier, not wake up or just sleep it off.
If you're keeping yourself busy, right? Busy so that you try not to focus or fall into that type of depression. Is that busy work, meaning that it's not really having any effect, or is there tools? If you look at it from a spiritual perspective, of course, we'll say that God can deliver you. So I'm not trying to I don't want to keep depression on you. But from a natural perspective, as far as like maybe what your therapist tells you or what you've learned about depression, is it something that you heal from, or because it's something like a chemical imbalance, it's just really you try to do busy work to not fall into it from natural, because of course spiritually we know God can do all things, but natural viewpoint of it.
In my sense, they do as therapists as try to push you to be busy in whatever manner that is. And busy might just be getting up and taking a walk, or doing daily activities like getting up to take a shower, getting up to clean, things like that. So
just keep moving.
But it's like at times when you're really that far in that slump or thinking process, you don't even want to get up.
Right.
So it's like, what? You just want me to get up and take a walk, and that's supposed to work. And for someone like me, I'm going to be walking and still be depressed while I'm walking. Just knowing how my thought process is.
Or even, I feel like knowing that I can't believe I have to take a walk. You know what I mean? Like, I even, that I'm someone that I have to do these steps.
Right.
And what is so crazy is that you go through this. Well, people in the church go through it a lot. I think we're kind of, as a society, well, as a church, I'll say we open up. Well, let me even bring that even smaller. Like the apostolic church, because the New Age Hillsong churches and stuff like that, I feel like they're way more open about it and have way more conversations outside of just let's pray it away. I feel like even though the apostolic church, like we talk about it a little bit more, but you're someone who has this close relationship with God and you still wanted to take your life. But I can't even imagine the people who don't have that relationship with God, because how we previously stated, it's like it's a twofold. It's a spiritual warfare and it's a natural thing. So for someone who don't have that, who don't invest in that spiritual connection, I can't even imagine how weighted depression has to be on them. Because then it's like, then you can understand someone killing themselves who don't have that spiritual connection keeping them holding on. I can't even imagine.
I definitely agree. I think that's probably, that spiritual portion of it is probably what kept me from even going all the way through with the attempts that I did have. Is always in the back of my mind, I can't do this. I lived this Christian life for this long, and this is how I'm gonna go out. So it's like, God, if you don't help me like right now, then I don't think there's no other way. Like my last attempt that I had, no, the attempt before that, I took the pills and then I spit them out, and I heard a voice say, "Get up, get dressed, and leave now."
And that was God.
And that was God, like in that moment intervening. Times passed. I had a knife to my arm, and my best friend called at the very moment that I was about to cut. And it's like, that was nothing but God. It's sad for those who don't have that opportunity, or is so far gone, so far lost that they can't even hear or see God saying, you can make it past this moment.
And that's why it's so important right from the beginning. I mean, Tasha, thank God that, you have, because you grew up in the church, correct?
Yes.
And, your mom is heavily involved, and we know she's anointed and a prayer warrior. And you had that circle of people to kind of, even when you're not holding on, you got them praying for you, holding on for you. But that's why, so everybody doesn't have that same type of spiritual support like that. And that's why it's so important to just, one, to be self-aware. Like I said, with issues with me, it was a depressive moment, but I was able to pull through by changing my situation. But it was something that I had to think through and talk through. Like, is this something that I can get out of? Okay, how can I get out of this? And then some people, the depression, it's so deep, or, like how we said, it doesn't make sense, and they feel like they can't get out of it. That's when it's like, okay, no matter what I'm doing, I'm still feeling this way, so I know I need to get help. And not being embarrassed to get help, because I feel like that's the biggest thing,
right?
Is the embarrassment of it.
Agreed. It is one of the biggest things. It's like you carry this stigma, like, I don't want to be labeled as this, but in no reality, and even in getting that help, until you still make up your mind that I'm gonna fight in some type of way, just going is not even enough. I was going to therapy now for almost 3 years now, and it wasn't until last year that I actually started to open up and really receive receive the help that was being given to me.
And thank God that you did. I'm happy that you were able to find the strength to keep going. TD Jakes had said something that was so powerful, and it made me, and I was like, I totally agree. What makes suicide so sad is he said that people who commit suicide, they think that they're killing who they are in their past, and they're making that go away. He said, but your past, all that trauma, the bad days, he said, that's already happened. He said, in reality, you're killing the person that you haven't even met yet. He said, God can turn a situation around in 24 hours. He said, you're not killing that old person. You're not killing what you're currently going through. You're killing the person that's not even here yet. You're killing the possible brighter days that you haven't even given a chance to allow to happen. And that's what's so sad, that people get to that point that their depression doesn't allow them to see past that moment. You know what I mean? That they don't see that, like, there is another day, and there's another day that I can try to be happy. I don't know what's going to happen an hour from now, 2 days from now, a year from now. They're just so focused on the past. And so one way, something that I think like I said, I've had depressive moments. I have not dealt with depression where I've been diagnosed or said that I'm clinically depressed, is that I journaled a lot. I don't journal as much as I used to, but I used to journal a lot. And it was a good way to, one, when you write down, you're going through a moment and you write down your anger, you write down your heartbreak or whatever the situation is, and you allow that to be the moment. And then it changes, right? The days go on, things get better. And then when you have those moments again, to look back to say, okay, I've been through this before. It was a moment. I got over it. Because a lot of times I feel like we forget. Like, I feel like that's where the spirit of depression definitely comes in, when we allow ourselves to forget that we've gotten over it. Like, God has done this before. I think journaling is, I don't know if that's something that therapists advise to journal. They do?
Definitely.
I think it's such a great tool to, even our dance leader, shout out to Dawn. What up, Dawn? She gave us those little books, and she said to write down your prayer requests and write down when God granted those prayer requests, to just go back and remember, like, listen, God did it before. He'll do it again. And it helps you keep going another day. And it just reminds you that those bad moments, it's not going to always last. It just keeps your mind like, okay, listen, it's going to get better. One day it's going to get, I felt this way before. I felt like I couldn't live before. And that's why I think it's so amazing that you're doing your blog, which we're about to talk about, that you're doing your blog, and even being on this podcast when you stand up and you give your testimony. Because even if it's not helping anybody else, it's a reminder to you, like, listen, I'm alive. I've been through it. Even if, like, you continue to have these depressive moments, I've been through it before. If you continue to have these suicidal ideologies, I've been through it before. God got me through it. So even if you talking, it's just for you, that's enough. You know what I mean? That's powerful in and of itself. It's just a reminder to you, like, God got me through this. You know what I mean? And so speaking of your blog, you did start a vlog. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that. What's it called? Why'd you start it?
Okay. So my blog is called Dying to Live, which is the page, and each post is basically starts with the title Dare Hope. I read your blog. I didn't even realize it does do that. Which, it's because when I was going through these moments, one day I realized, even in feeling hopeless, I realized I wish there was something said to me that could have changed in those moments to make me feel hopeful. And I was like, I wish one day I can tell people to do the opposite of what I went through. And in that, I just thought, okay, I should start writing like a little series called Dear Hope, of letters to my old self and to other young people coming up, to tell them, listen, this is how I went through it. Don't follow what I do. Please, there's hope. Do the total opposite. And then I try to always give a foundation of a scripture and a nugget from that scripture to tie into whatever I was talking about.
Which is the best part of your blog, is that you are a Christian, you're in the church, you're involved, and you're allowing other young people, well, people in general, you're allowing them to know, like, listen, it happens to other people too. Certain things like depression, suicidal thoughts, I'm not going to necessarily, there are certain things in the church, it's kind of like you'll allude to it, but you won't necessarily stand up and say, like, I go through it. Like someone who slept around, you'll rarely hear an older person in the church stand up and be like, yeah, I used to sleep around. You'll have that once in a while, but you'll rarely hear people talk about the serious issues that a lot of people go through that nobody, that they're not talking about. So you being in the church alone, that's powerful, just to see it from someone like, listen, you can make it through. Someone, because the world don't have a problem talking about I'm depressed and I got medication and da. They don't have a problem talking about that issues. And I think it's interesting, the church, you would think that that's the place that, and there's no knock on the church, because every situation, nothing is perfect. It's nothing but broken people in church. So, I understand that it's not a perfect type of situation. But you would think church is the place that you can bear it all. But that tends to be the church, the place where people put on the most masks. You know what I'm saying? Isn't that crazy when you think about it?
Very crazy.
That gave me a little revelation myself. I wonder, and I wonder how that even started, that church is the place that you act the most fake. Like, how did that even start, when that's supposed to be the place that your soul is bared and you seeking help? And
I question that sometimes too, but I think it's that church people get this notion that God can heal all, God can do all, so I need to show that portion of God. And we get afraid of showing that, wait, but he also said, I'm going to suffer while I was on this earth if I want to reign with him. Mm-hmm. So how can I be that person that he's using to show his glory through if I'm not even willing to go through something and tell somebody that I've been through it? So how do we get these testaments in the Bible? Because somebody had to tell their story. Mm-hmm. So
and sometimes I be getting annoyed with our testimony service, because people stand up and be like, thank God I didn't fall down the sidewalk. But testimony service is so uplifting, like that really. And I actually never testify, which is bad, but it's such a powerful moment to be able to see and hear, like, God brought somebody else through it. Like, that's why I can understand Bishop bringing it back, because it's like it is such a huge encourager. Testimony does something that preaching doesn't do. You know what I'm saying?
That moment, right?
Mm-hmm. It is so important to testify. And that's why I told myself when I started this podcast that I was going to be, very transparent, or as transparent as God would allow me to be, because I understand everything doesn't always need to be said at every moment. Mm-hmm. So, I said I would be very prayerful about it. And the last episode, I talked about not having sex, because I know that's a situation in the church that, we talk about it, but just to let people, especially young people in this situation, especially young people, know that there is someone else out there that is trying, that is succeeding. This is a sex-driven society, but you can still be celibate, you can still obey God, and you could be successful with it. And so these type of conversations, I think, are so important to have, especially for the people in the church, because we're supposed to be showing life, and how you're being the salt of the earth and giving inspiration. But I feel like we're dying the most. Dying the most, that's not a correct type of phrase, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. We're struggling so much. I feel like we're not even showing the light how we could. And I think having these type of situations, like how we talk about it, your blog, this podcast, I think it's a great way to shed the light.
I agree. And to highlight that, no, we might be Christians, but yeah, we do go through life too. We're human. We experience the same type of pain that someone who might not be a Christian experience. And it's okay to say, I'm going through that. I think in the past, the church was very big on whatever happens in your house stays in your house. But now it's like, no, somebody needs to hear it because they need to know too that I can make it through.
Which also, when we have our youth sessions and the times that we have the panels, I love those moments the most because you get just another person's... I just love the conversation. That's why I haven't always been the talker. I'm used to being the listener, but I still love having these type of conversations, that because this is what really, these life, hearing somebody else's perspective, this is what really feeds me. I need the preaching too, but this is what is, it keeps me going. You know what I mean? When I'm hearing someone else's perspective and I'm hearing how someone else made it through and that they going through it, and you don't think like you're crazy, or I thought I was the only one, and you realize there's other people, and then you don't know how you could be helping somebody else and they could be helping you. And so these conversations are needed.
I agree. And that's what I hope as my blog produces, is people beginning to talk about this stuff, and let's deal with it before we have more suicides on our hands. Suicides, period, but especially in the church.
I 100% agree. And I know that your blog is definitely, even if you never hear somebody say it, your blog is 100% making an impact in somebody's life. And it's needed. We need to hear what it is you got to say, what you've been through and how you're overcoming. And like I said before, even if it don't help anybody, it doesn't help anybody else, it's a help for you, for you to just keep reminding yourself that God can do it again, that he's done it before, he'll do it again, he'll continue to do it, he'll continue to keep me. I am not worthless. I'm on this earth for a reason. And so thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I got this at the end of, Tasha has this posted on her blog. If you find yourself or you know someone struggling with suicidal thoughts, with depression, you can contact the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. You can contact the Crisis Hotline NYC Mental Health at 1-88-NYC-WELL or 1-88-692-9355. Or you could text WELL to 65173. Or you can come to Christ Pentecostal Temple at 109-45 157th Street, Jamaica, New York.
11433.
Yes, 11433. Thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that this gave you some type of inspiration or motivation to either seek help, to know that there's other people out there dealing with depression, who deal with who has experienced suicidal thought, that you are not alone. Please utilize those resources that we mentioned at the end. If you feel like it's not a moment and it's something that you definitely need help with. And I hope this made some type of impact on your life. And once again, thank you, Tasha, so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you too. You're welcome.
Bye, guys.